Hi folks, I wanted to make this video discussing my expertise and tips on owning and operating a wood stove. I'm a lifelong Alaskan. I've been around wood stoves pretty much my entire life. Picked up a couple things here and there, so I'm hoping that you'll find this information useful for you if you're someone new at wood stoves or anything like that. So with that said, we're going to begin. We're looking here at my earth stove. I don't know what model it is. I don't really worry about that too much. I just know it's a nice stove. It's rather large, and it does a good job keeping the heat up and maintaining temperature. I do have uh, this is in my basement, so I have a forced air heater also that is in use. So this supplements the heat for that. So one of the first things we're going to talk about here is, I got a fire extinguisher here. I don't have any stuff right next to the stove right here. I have a tote with my kindling, a pot of water, my ash bucket, and everything's pretty much swept around there. So, you don't want to have a bunch of stuff right up to your stove because your stove does get hot. My stove is babysat pretty well by myself or my wife, so I'm not worried about any sort of fires. We don't overfire our stove or anything like that. So one thing I want to point out to you is the bottom of this door has a bit of a lip here, and that lip can collect debris from your firewood and ash. I would recommend that you sweep that off a couple times a day, depending on how much you use your stove, just so that it helps eliminate any sort of embers or anything that could catch fire. The other thing is I have no rug or anything in front of the stove. I know some people have done that, and I also have known somebody that did that, and they lost their house to a fire because they fed their stove and they didn't know an ember fell onto their rug and caught fire. Anyway, so you definitely want to keep this area clean up, clean that lip. I like to blow the top of my stove off every so often, once a day or something, just to keep dust and what have you from building up and other embers right there, So, and then this is an 8 inch. This stove is an 8 inch outlet with a 6 inch, 8 to 6 inch reducer right here, and then that's a 6 inch pipe with my damper and my thermometer, my pipe thermometer. With the 8 inch stack with the coming out of the stove, you do want to have it reduced down to your stove side, your regular pipe size pretty quickly. So I have a 8 to 6 adapter right here. All the old timers have told me that you want to do it that way. You want to have your reducer right on top of the stove. You don't want to have a run and then have it reduce. But you can if you have a 6 inch stove pipe out of your stove and you have an 8 inch pipe. You can also get an adapter for that, and you can actually run your 6 inch pipe for a ways and then connect into an 8 inch pipe. Um, and you want to have a damper. I like to have a damper. You need to have a damper for air control, just so that just to keep the heat inside the wood stove shut down for the air, cool your stove down. If you have a chimney fire, you have another source, another way to choke it out. And then that's about 18 inches up from the stove top, and then there is the thermometer. This is a Mikos Red Devil, and the thermometer is actually about 200 degrees off. It's actually somewhere around 400 right now, and I just opened up my stove, so it's heating up a little bit. This thermometer is not accurate, but I have checked it with a couple others that were accurate and found out that it's off. So you might want to check your thermometer on your stove to make sure that it is accurate. And you can put it here on the stove or anywhere, but really, um, in my experiences, it's best to have it above your damper so that you know what your pipe's temperature in your pipe is. So anyway, that's how I do that. And then before I get into touching on cleaning it, you see that my pipe goes up and it goes up into its insulated pipe up there, which is concrete and steel, a little different than other people. it's a straight run. I've seen people with their stoves here, they have a fireplace insert, they have an existing chimney or something like that, and they have their 45, or they have their elbow coming right off the top of the stove, and that's not very good practice because you're going to have a lot of concentrated heat on one side of your stovepipe of your elbow, and I have seen them get white hot on people's stoves. So really, I know some codes. I don't know if it's nationally, but I know in Alaska, if you have to have a thimble is the piping and the hardware that goes through the wall of a house or your structure. It's called a thimble. The code is 5 feet, and that's what I would recommend. Some people, that's what they have to work with. I understand. Just keep in mind that if you're doing a mod or you're putting in a wood stove in your house or anything like that, it's best to run straight up for cleaning purposes, for draw purposes, just for all around safety purposes. So you can take that information and use it or not. Like I said, I understand that people they have their stove set up because that's what they have to work with. Just try to think smart on that. So anyway, with that said, for cleaning, I use a Imperial brush right there. This is an older unit, so I don't know if it looks the same. The box looks the same. This is what the brush looks like right here, and it's a premium one. It has a lot more bristles on there, and you want to have plenty of bristles cleaning your pipe for creosote. Get rid of the creosote. And then these are my rods. These are the extensions, and there's 6 here. And if you're able to go on the roof of your house like I am, it's good to already have a couple of these connected. Since there's 6 in here, I'll connect the rods up into 2 sections already. So all I gotta do is just hook one section up at a time, and it just eliminates the need for extra steps. And just because I have it right here, I know I've heard people talk about what kind of brooms do I need, what kind of vacuums do I need. If you have a regular floor, non-carpeted, here you go. Just use a regular broom. Keep it simple. You don't need special vacuums or anything like that. You own a wood stove, you're gonna get dirt and debris and stuff that just comes with owning a wood stove. So I like to clean my chimney about every 6 weeks because I have a large stove, and because of it's a 8 to 6, I have more creosote, more buildup on my pipe. Um, that's my experience with this stove and other stoves in the past where they were larger than the intended pipe. You just get more on the pipe, and so I like to brush mine out every 6 weeks. Another thing for my stove maintenance is this. Yes, that is a wonderful beer, but it's an aluminum can. Now, aluminum cans have the same chemicals, the paint and in the can. They have the same chemicals that you find in creosote sticks and fire logs. So you can put 1 or 2 or 3 cans into your stove, and like I said before, it all depends on what you have, how big your stove is, how much stack do you have, all that. But if you have a creosote problem, you can put a can or 2 in there, or however many that you need, and burn them, and you'll start noticing, usually in about a day, you'll start noticing buildup that's inside your stove peeling. You'll see creosote peeling, coming off in chunks. You can actually tap your stovepipe, and you can hear the creosote fall down. That's not a replacement for actually brushing out your pipe. All that does is it helps with your creosote problem, and keep it from you having to go up there and brush it all the time. All the time is like maybe every day or every other day, what have you. And that's some severe creosote problems, like you're burning green wood, what have you. If you're burning seasoned wood, I haven't used a pop can or beer can on my wood stove for a long time because I have really good seasoned wood. If you have less than stellar seasoned wood, use the can. But that, like I said, that is no means a replacement for actually brushing out your pipe. And if you want to use creosote sticks and fire logs, then that's okay too. this is just another way. It's an old school way to help combat your creosote. And over here I have this stock pot right here, and I have a trivet here on the stove. Whenever I have weather coming, snow storms, wind storms, and anything like that, I put that on top of my stove. I got plenty of water on hand for my animals, my kids, and flushing toilets, what have you, but it's always good to have that hot water on the stove. It does take a while for it to heat up. Now, with that being said, I don't leave that pot on that stove all the time because heat has to dissipate off your stove. If you're overfiring your stove, for instance, like it's getting way too hot, and you have that big, heavy pot or obstruction on top of your stove, it'll actually get so hot it'll start glowing red underneath that obstruction, and you don't want that because if you do that for long enough periods of time, you'll actually start sagging. You'll get a dip in your stove, and you don't want to do that. So whenever the weather event is gone, I don't need it. I just take the pot of water off, and that's purely up to you. If you have a little teapot or something, you can leave it on your stove all the time for humidity purposes. That's fine. It's for the big stuff that I'm referring to. Obviously I got my wood right there. And so here is my ash bucket, and we're going to talk about that here. Some people have asked, what do I do with ash? What do I do with ash? Because they're new, or they're in a city, or they don't know. Well, what I do is when I shovel out my stove, I put all the ash into the bucket right here, and I'm gonna explain a couple things too. There's a couple different ways that you can clean your stove. Well, there's several different ways that you can, but how I do it is I go on the roof, and I always go down. Now. In the wintertime, I have to keep my stove going. So what I do, I can't let it die because I rely on my stove. So what happens is I don't feed it in one morning. When I get up in the morning for start my day, I don't put wood on the fire. I'll go and I'll stir the coals up and anything that's chunky left, and I let that burn down. Then a couple hours later, I'll go up and I will brush the chimney. And I brush the chimney, and I will scoop the creosote and what came out of the pipe that's like fall in the middle of the stove. But I don't dig down. I dig around the edges, all around the edges of the inside of the wood stove and the diameter, and I shovel that out. Because if you have coals, you want to try to like keep them in the middle of your stove. And after you clean out all that ash, and I usually get like a bucket, a good solid bucket, maybe a bucket and a half after, then I can spread the coals. I can throw some spruce and kindling on top of that and regular wood, and then boom, within an hour, I have no problems with heat. Um, the other way is, if you're comfortable with it this way, then you just let the stove shut down. Don't feed it for a couple of days, let it get stone cold, then you can shovel it out and you won't find any embers or anything like that. I do recommend gloves if you do it what I call the in-service method. In-service method is what I just explained, where you don't feed it, but you still have coals and blah, blah, blah. So make sure you got good gloves. Make sure you got some ratty clothes if you're doing a lot of chimney work or what have you, just because it is messy. So anyway, with the ash, then I'll take it out here, and we're going to go outside, and I'm going to talk a little bit about wood real quick, and then that'll be it for the video. So then, what I have is I have a metal trash can. It's actually the stove ash inside, and I use that for my garden. I use that for traction when we have ice rain, which does happen. Anything like that, it's good for traction. It's good for the garden. It kind of sweetens the soil up, so it's good. It's good stuff to have. Just make sure that you are using a metal bucket. Don't use a plastic bucket when you're cleaning your stove out. And don't put your ash in the garbage if you are not able to keep it. Put it out in the grass, or put it out somewhere. Just don't dump it in the garbage, because you could actually have embers in there and cause a fire. So it's all common sense right there, folks. So we're coming up here to my woodshed. My woodshed's actually really big. It's 18 by 20. It's designed to hold 20 cords of wood.
I don't have 20 cords of wood in here right now, but I have a lot of wood. A lot of wood. And all this is seasoned birch. And this wood has probably been seasoning here for what, 2 years? Yeah, 2 years. And then I got wood well in the back that's seasoning from this last year. So every year I got to move all the wood from the back to the front. So this whole area gets full of wood. So it's January right now. I'm down halfway on this course. Then I would have another course right here. And then I had 3 short rows, as in they didn't come out all the way where I'm standing, and they were filled up right here. So I've actually burned quite a bit of wood here since when I started in October. So anyway, our main sources of wood in Alaska is this is birch, spruce, evergreen, spruce trees. Then we have cottonwood, poplar, and some other stuff like ash and all that. I'm sorry, aspen. But um, people don't burn that usually. Depending on where they are, though. This is spruce right here. By the way, if no one's ever seen a spruce tree, those are spruce poles, spruce slabs. Spruce is really good for building sheds and stuff like that, cabins, that kind of thing. And then cottonwood is right here where you can see that little axe hanging out. So birch is that white tree right there too, if you're wondering, since it's standing. Birch is the hardwood for Alaska. That's good to season. I actually prefer if it's seasoned more than a year, about 2 years, and it's really dang good. Much more than that, after like let's say 3 year, 4 year season wood, then it starts to kind of burn up a little fast. But birch anyway is the main wood. Spruce is second for me. Spruce is something that I use for kindling, getting fires started, getting the fire hot, that kind of thing. And cottonwood is not a bad wood. I know it gets a bad rap by a lot of people, but if you do have to burn it, you can cut it down, split it and stack it, and put it in a shed, put it under cover. It does dry out, and it does burn up fast. You got to feed the stove every couple 3 hours, but it is wood, it is heat. And if you have a bunch of cottonwood on your property, kind of similar to what I have here, where I have lots and lots of cottonwood because I'm got a bunch of springs on site here in a lake, and I'm near a river, and blah blah blah. I have a lot of cottonwood. So if you're trying to maintain your property or what have you, you're going to have a lot of cottonwood come down. You might as well still process it out and split it and burn it the next year. But main source is birch. Some places in Alaska they do burn strictly spruce, or they might burn a lot of cottonwood. It really all depends, but most people in Alaska they're going to burn birch for the main source. So that's pretty much all I got to say about wood stoves and what have you. I really hope that you found this information helpful. Might be able to use that later on. Um, Things like that. So hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you later. Take care.